Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Homebody Haven podcast, a show about love, but especially self-love. I'm your host, Esprit. And before we get started on today's episode, I want to get a little housekeeping out of the way. So if you are listening, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you head on over to the YouTube channel to watch the video version of the episodes, and make sure you subscribe, like, comment, engage with the episodes. It really helps out a lot. If you are located in the Charleston, South Carolina area, I am also a body worker specializing in stretch therapy, and you can come visit me. And if you are looking to develop a little bit more self-love, self-awareness, and reconnection to your body, your home, I offer one-on-one sessions, and all of that information is listed below in the description. Make sure you follow along alongside the episodes by following me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. They're all esprit.oree. And if you'd like to join the community where we talk about these episodes in a little bit more in depth, the Homebody Haven community, you can find the link down below as well. I've got limited free lifetime memberships available. So today's episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about awareness, specifically focusing on the 5 channels of awareness. It's a really great tool and system to utilize when you're trying to recognize what's happening on an internal level, process, purge, and rewrite the story that's existing in your body. So before we talk about the 5 channels themselves, let's talk a little bit about what awareness actually is and how you develop and cultivate the skill. So awareness is the state of having knowledge, consciousness, or understanding of something, encompassing awareness of oneself, surroundings, or specific situations and facts. So through different methods of learning how to focus, hone in your attention, mindfulness, and really process and vocalize what's happening in your system, you're able to develop a deeper sense of awareness and grow this skill and ability. So the 5 channels of awareness is a tool that you can utilize when you're in a space of high stress, overwhelm, or you're just trying to get a little bit more information about what your body is trying to tell you about your current circumstance, your current situation, or just an emotion that maybe you're finding yourself in this loop, finding a loop in, and you can't really get out. Right? So the first channel amongst these 5 channels is sensation. Sensation simply refers to whatever sensory output is happening in the body. So you can look at it through the lens of temperature, weight, if you're feeling numbness or tingling in your fingers, for example, if there's a heaviness on your chest, if you're noticing different parts of your body, you're feeling colder or hotter. And it's really just taking observation of what's happening on a physical level in your body. Now, the best way that I have found to do this is through meditation. So having a seat somewhere quiet, turning off all music or external stimuli, television or anything like that, maybe putting your phone on Do Not Disturb, closing your eyes, and just noticing what's happening in your body. I mean, the meditation is obviously a great way to incorporate any of these channels, but sensation is going to be the first step. So the second channel of awareness is imagery. And imagery refers to any mental pictures, images, colors, shapes that are going to be attached to an emotion or are created in your mind as a response to a situation or a memory. Now, imagery can look like anything from a full scene that's playing out, but can also be taking the sensations that you felt in your body in step 1, right? And creating an image that has a particular size, shape, weight, sharpness, speed, any kind of descriptors to place a box or a border around what those sensations are, and it gets you a step closer to making sense of what's happening in your body and deepening your awareness to it. So for example, there's a technique called the emotional clearing method, and it's particularly used in spaces of anxiety. So anxiety is a future emotion. You're typically feeling anxious or worried about something that hasn't necessarily happened in the way that you're fearing. So with this technique, and it's a great way to utilize imagery, you're imagining that the anxious event or the event that you're trying to avoid that's causing you some anxiety is actually in the shape of an orb or a ball or square. It doesn't really matter, but it's in a condensed form, in a condensed shape, and it's ahead of you in this line, right? It is in the future. You haven't yet come upon it, but it's providing you with some sort of discomfort and tension thinking about running into it. And with this technique, you want to close your eyes, imagine you're walking along a trail, and that anxious orb is standing, 10 feet ahead of you. So you want to imagine yourself utilizing all of that anxious energy, bringing it down to the base of your feet, for example, and acting almost as a propeller or some sort of volcanic push that's going to propel you into the air. And where you land is actually in front of that anxious orb. And in your mind's eye, it doesn't make the anxiety disappear necessarily, but it makes it easier to manage and handle. So in your mind's eye, you're now standing in front of the thing that was causing you anxiety, fear, nervousness, discomfort, tension, whatever it is. Now it's behind you. So you can put yourself into the headspace of, if I no longer was worried about this thing happening, or in the event that it's already happened, the thing that I fear, the thing that I'm concerned about, the thing that I'm worried about has already occurred. How would I operate going forward? How would I move on and continue if the thing that I was so afraid of happening and so worried about happening has already occurred? What are the next steps for me to take? Because now I'm no longer afraid of it happening. All right, so that's an example of how imagery can be used to help process an emotion like anxiety or concern about a particular situation or event. The third channel is behavior. Behavior refers to the posture or positioning of your body and how it shows up and reflects or affects your emotions or your perception of the world. So for example, if you're in a public speaking situation, you have to give a talk or give a speech, they always tell you to have your shoulders back, chest up, head high, and you're going to walk with a sense of confidence. It's going to make it easier for you to memorize what you're actually saying, relay it in a way that's clear and understandable to the audience that you're speaking to, and also people will see you as an authority or an expert or someone who's really knowledgeable about the subject at hand because of the way that you're holding yourself. Whereas if you are holding yourself in almost this very protective, isolated, closed off position, most people aren't really going to be that convinced that you know what you're talking about. And you probably won't be either. It might affect the shakiness of your voice. It probably affects the amount of eye contact that you're going to give. And it can also affect how you memorize and process the information that you're supposed to be presenting. So the way that we hold our bodies and the position that we hold our bodies tells a lot about where we're holding stress and tension and discomfort. And behavior is probably something that you notice when you're communicating with someone anyways. You're going to see it more on them than they can see on themselves because you're looking at it from an external lens. So think about a time that you've been talking to a friend and maybe they're having a tough time. What is their body typically doing? Their chest and shoulders might be a bit more rolled in. They might be crossing their arms. Their shoulders might be high towards their ears. Maybe they're looking down. Maybe they're twiddling their fingers and their thumbs, and they just can't seem to sit still, right? So our behavior that our body enacts tells a lot about what's happening on an external level and what's happening on an emotional level and how we're processing the world around us. So next time you talk to someone, or even if maybe if you're like me and you talk to yourself, look in the mirror and take observation of how your body is holding itself. Now, excuse if you hear any background noise. I'm in obviously a different situation for filming today. So there's a lot more people around me than typical. But the fourth channel is affect or emotion. So now we can get to a place where we can name what's happening in our system. And this goes beyond happy, sad, and angry, right? This is going to go into, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling devastated, I'm feeling confused, or I'm feeling really excited, or I'm feeling really hopeful, whatever it is. It can be positive or negative, but it's being able to put real words to the emotion that's being felt, because if you don't actually know what emotion you're feeling, it's going to be difficult to start introducing tools or coping mechanisms that are actually going to be helpful for the emotion that you're experiencing or the state of being that you're in. So, but it's also difficult to get to a place where you jump immediately to, I feel this way, without utilizing the first 3 channels, for example. It just provides an extra step of clarity so that you can get to the 5th channel, which is meaning. This is now returning back to that cognitive space, right? Because with the 5 channels of awareness, you want to start with the body. You want to utilize the body's information, the body's intelligence, and what it can relay to you about what's happening in your system before you jump straight to the mind and try and make sense of the situation. But the 5th channel is meaning. So it refers to the understanding, the interpretation, or narrative or story that people tell themselves about their experience. And this is where it gets really fun, because once you get to this 5th channel and you can make sense of what's happening in your body and you can verbalize and logically understand what your situation is, now you can work towards changing it. We are the creators of our own reality. Of course, some things are set in stone, but how we perceive things, how we move through them, how we accept things is going to be largely based on if we've done the proper process of processing and releasing the things that are sitting in our bodies. So once you can notice the sensations in your body, you can see what's happening in your mind's eye, you can adjust and fix the positioning and posture of your body, and you can verbalize the emotion that's happening in your system, you can make sense of your inner world. And when you can make sense of your inner world and come to a space of contentment and peace and ease within that, now we can take a look at our external world and change our perceptions, change the narrative and story that we're telling ourselves, and we're able to connect with people on a deeper level. We can be more vulnerable and open because there's no shame or guilt or confusion about what's happening in our system. And the 5 channels of awareness is such a seemingly simple set of steps and tools, but it has been so monumental in helping me get through the emotions associated with like stress in school or stress at work or stress in relationships, or if I've had an argument with a loved one, being able to make sense of it rather than getting wrapped up in that emotional loop of anxiety and fear and sadness and confusion. It just provides that extra step of clarity. And it's a system, it's a tool that I use in my one-on-one work with people because it's just so easy to compartmentalize everything that's happening in your system one by one so that you don't feel overwhelmed trying to do it all at once. And I do have a workbook for the 5 channels of awareness where I've guided meditations attached to each channel, reflection prompts, journaling prompts, and other activities and exercises. You can find it down in the description below as well. But it's such a base for somatic work in a lot of ways because it eliminates all of the headiness that sometimes we can exist and stay in when we feel overwhelmed or stressed. And it allows us to connect to our body, which is our home. It is the headquarters of all of this information that we are so often ignoring because we're just trying to make sense of it. We're just trying to make sense of it, change it, and fix it, rather than taking the steps necessary to analyze what's happening in our body, what's happening in our system, and slowly work our way back up to the mind as opposed to starting there and then trying to fix the body. So please utilize the 5 channels of awareness as we've described here. Try out the workbook, or let's work together one-on-one and figure out a way to process a certain situation that you are experiencing. Now, this was a very quick episode. Well, maybe it wasn't that quick. I don't know. But I really wanted to touch on just the base of somatic work, and particularly this tool, because it's been incredibly helpful for me recently in processing difficult or in unfavorable circumstances. But if you would like to follow along and you'd like to learn a little bit more, like I said below, you can book a one-on-one session with me, or you can check out the workbook for some more self-paced work. But I want to thank you all so much for listening or watching. Please make sure you subscribe and follow along. Follow me on social media, as well as check out the community on School, the Homebody Haven. And I will see you next week, Wednesday at 11 a.m. for another episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.